Good morning, everybody. It is a lovely day for a new episode. This is Dorothy, your host of the Death in Cambodia, Life in America podcast. Today, I have another incredible guest. I am so excited. I kid you not, actually, guys, I've been tracking her for a while. And I have been waiting to bring her onto the show. Today, we have Chef Nite. Chef Nite was born in Cao Dong and raised in Stockton, California, and she is the award-winning chef and owner of the two restaurants Nyum Bai and Lunette, both of which are where we are right now in San Francisco Bay Area. She has been learning Cambodian recipes from her mom over the phone and exploring her Cambodian roots. While eating katiev at a noodle shop in Phnom Penh, she was like, you know what? It's time for me to bring this food to America and showcase this for everybody. And so you can also recognize her from the Netflix show Chef Table's Noodles. And last but not least, her book, My Cambodia, is coming out September 3rd. We are so excited to talk to her about her recipes, her inspiration, and essentially what she's got going on in the future. So Chef Nite, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Dorothy. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. Chef Nite, or Nite, whatever you would like me to call you.
It's called me
Nite, what if we were to take you back to the way beginning, when did you know that you always wanted to become a chef? Like, where did your love for food kind of start if you were to go way back?
I definitely did not know that I wanted to be a chef, but I did at an early age. I learned that food was important. Like, I guess there's two parts to this answer too, or just to talk about like how I became a chef. But one of the earliest memory I had as a little girl was when I watched my mom like carefully removed all the bones from the fish that she had cooked, and then picked the meat to put inside like this sticky jasmine rice, stuffed the fish in the sticky rice, and then like formed a ball. And then she fed my little brother with this fish ball in her hands. And the act of doing that, like observing her from afar, it was like the most tender, loving, affectionate thing that I've seen from my mom. And I often still do think about this too. Um, how my grandma probably did the same for my mom. And so as a little girl, I have witnessed food and experienced love through food. And I think that's when I fell in love with food and knowing the importance of it, of like this
Mm,
love language. And the second
yeah.
part, this might be too embarrassed to admit, but I'll share it anyways. I have always been obsessed with food because it's just food has brought me so much joy and comfort in so many different levels. Even as a little girl, I remembered in elementary school, instead of like going to recess, I would volunteer to work in the elementary school cafeteria during recess. And the only
Mhm.
reason why I did that was because I could eat as much food as I wanted. And I was so happy doing it.
Smart girl, smart
Yeah.
girl. She knew how to get the extra portions.
Yeah, and so I was just, like, constantly thinking about food, I was obsessed with food, but then, like, the idea of being a chef was never, like, in my head, or I just never thought about it, but now when I look back, it's just but, being a chef was the only thing that made sense because of my passion for eating.
Yeah, yeah. You were always a foodie then, right? Would you say, Nite?
Yeah, I think so, yes. I mean, I've always been, like, my dad's eating partner in crime because shared in the cookbook that he is, like, the true OG of the foodie because he would just, like, spent his time, drove around Stockton and discovered, like, new hole-in-the-wall places, like the taco trucks and things like that, and so I would always tag along with him growing up.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned something there where you looked at the food that your mom was so tenderly kind of making in front of you, and you thought, wow, this is what maybe, my grandma and our ancestors used to eat and make. And so, what was your relationship at that time to your grandma and your mom growing up? Would you say that it was strong, or would you say that the food, as you progressed in it, connected you guys further?
Good question. I think, I mean, I knew about my grandmother because of stories that I've heard from my mom. And I think my relationship with my mom expanded. We got closer and closer throughout the years with food. And I think we were close as any, like, I guess my family would get close, it's like we grew up like not saying I love you, or like there's like we don't give each other hugs, but there's this underlying knowing that they love you. Something they
Mhm.
would express it with the things that they do. And then, just like the example with the fish and like cooking. And so in that sense, like I was close with my mom. But, my childhood was very much chaotic. And then there's always this um aura of like some type of mystery and darkness that I was always so curious about. Um, it's like I knew who my mom was, but yet everything was still kind of a mystery in some ways.
Yeah, I think, and I think it is hard to describe, but I would say that there are so many Cambodian, American or Australian or whoever within the diaspora that can totally relate to that, and I would say, even within my own family, just like the war and the Khmer Rouge really, in my family at least, was not talked about, and it was something that everybody kinda tiptoed around, right? Like, it was a dark gray cloud that nobody really dared to really question or ask about, but yet it was always there. What was your relationship like being a Khmer person growing up as well? Being a 1.5er, you then were kind of living through the unpopular phase of, the 90s and the early 2000s when it feel like it wasn't super cool to be Khmer, due to, like, reputation or whatever that was kinda circling around that. So, like, what was your relationship with being Khmer as you were growing up?
So I think I was the weird and odd one because I have always had so much pride being Khmer.
Mm, mm.
Always, 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 always. Like somehow I never like I just like repped it so hard. Like I'm Khmer, it's like not even Khmer American. I'm just straight up Khmer. And
Yeah.
somehow I've always felt connected to Cambodia, and I just don't know why, but it's just like this sense of just like pride. And so that being said, and this is maybe a big part with how I was raised because, my parents spoke Khmer to us. We ate Khmer food. It was all I knew. Like
Right,
going to
right.
school, I was slowly like learning English, but going home, it was like I would imagine like life was very much like Cambodia. Like we ate on like we set up the newspaper on the
Newspaper.
floor. Ate on the floor. We use our hands to like pick the rice with the fish, watch like Khmer soap opera in the background, Khmer music in the background. So it's very much like Khmer centric, So I wasn't like ashamed or anything like that. I was always very proud being Khmer. And I think too, maybe because like there's this big painting of the Angkor Wat in my family living room. And I always would wonder like about the Angkor Wat, like how grand and beautiful and ancient the Khmer Empire was back then. And this is like stories I've heard from my mom, which we look at the painting and talked about it.
Mhm.
And it just made me curious about the motherland, but also like the history that my mom has shared with me about Cambodia and like the Angkor Wat. It just made me even more proud that like my ancestors and like my lineage came from like such a mighty empire, and also to know that the Angkor like empire like spanned to present day Thailand, Cambodia, and Vietnam. And so to me, and like how we were this massive empire, and why are we now like this little country? So that
Yeah.
curiosity also like made me even like wonder what happened to Cambodia, like the history, but at the same time being very proud. I mean, to the extent in high school, my senior year, I started a Cambodian club actually. That was how much pride I had being
Oh,
Khmer.
that's awesome. That's so awesome. And that was the first one to be created at your high school?
Yes, yes, yes. I approached like one of the cool art teacher because I thought he would say yes because he's like cool and hip and young. I'm like, he'll know about Cambodia. And sure enough, he's like, sure, do whatever you want. You can use my classroom. And so,
No, that's so incredible. And I think that's awesome to hear because everybody's story is so different. I think everyone's relationship to their identity is so different. And a lot of it really depends on like where you grew up and again, I guess how much your parents lean into the culture as well. And I think that's really amazing. It seems like though as you mentioned, when it came to specifically sharing about the war and the Khmer Rouge, your family, similarly to mine, didn't share too much of that, right, Night?
yeah, that's like correct. I mean, it's right. Like, it was such a hush hush conversation. Like, I remember, um, yeah, as a little girl, I would ask my mom, like, "Who are you talking to over the phone, like, 2 AM in the morning?" It's like, "What is going on, and why are you crying?" So just very curious about, like, this conversation she would have, like, early in the morning, and then when I would ask about certain things about Cambodia, it was very hush hush, or, the energy of the room would just shift to just, like, complete sadness and darkness. So, I mean, right then, like, I knew, like, something was going on. It made me even more curious. But, I understood why it was something that they just didn't want to bring up?
Yeah, yeah, no, it's so hard for them, and I also feel like it's hard for them to share with us, right? Because I talk to the other second generation or 1.5ers, and it's like the parents had gone through something so horrific. They have the mentality of not wanting to taint us with it, not wanting to burden us with that weight of trauma, and they would much rather just keep it in within themselves. But I think it's really, really beautiful because it's not the first time that I've spoken to a chef who had said specifically that the act of cooking is almost like a live way of storytelling between mother or father and child. And so that although words maybe not have been the medium for exchanging information, for exchanging stories, it seemed like that was very similar with your mom and her sharing her stories and her recipes through food.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think, yeah, my parents did talk much about what had happened to them for various reasons and very similar to, other 1.5 Khmers. But, it's something that they have forgotten or there's something that just buried, deep in their memory that they don't even want to bring up again. Because one thing that my mom had always said was, we're here now, we're safe, we're not in danger anymore. Let's just, move on. Um, and forget about the past. And that's like one thing she've always said. But then I could see that the past was still kind of haunting the family and like my mom and my dad. And so, a direct way, I guess, of just like pulling information out from them, even as a young girl, was to like talk about Cambodia when my mom is, like, cooking, like, or when I'm in the kitchen with my mom, like, chopping lemongrass or garlic. I would just, like, ask questions like, "Did you cut lemongrass with grandma when you were young?" Or, like, "How did this taste like when you grew up eating it?" Like, "Did you go to the market to buy it?" And so, like, this with, like, kind of filled in this puzzle I've always had of who my parents were in Cambodia. Who were they
Mm,
before the war, and
right.
why are they the way that they are now? And with food and, like, little tidbits of just, like, how they were, like, just
Mhm,
kind of gave me answers to what I was looking for, like, within my own identity and my parents' identity as well.
mhm. Yeah,
So that was, like, always very, like, interesting to me. So much
yeah.
of what I do is, like, to discover, like, or to learn more about my identity and who my parents were before the
Mhm.
war.
Yeah. You've always been a curious kid, it seems like. Curious in so many ways. Curious about the history, curious about like even the country and the geography. You had mentioned in the Netflix special and also in the book that is coming out that you really got your epiphany moment when you traveled back to Cambodia and you were sitting down in a stall and you were eating a bowl of katib and you were like, "This is so good. I have to share this with the world." Talk to me about that trip in particular and that particular moment.
I mean, it's still so vivid. This epiphany happened in Phnom Penh about 12 years ago, and I think this is like my third trip back into Cambodia. And at that point, I've been back 3 times or so. And so it was on this particular trip, my usual morning routine, get up, walk to the market, get a bowl of kutil because that's what you eat for breakfast there. And I can still remember it so clearly. Like I sat there slurping, like, slurping the broth. And then this idea of just opening up a Cambodian restaurant named Nyum Bai just popped to me, like just came into my mind. It was just so clear. And then also it was so clear that I knew what music to play, like how it's going to look like. But also now that I'm chatting with you now, I can, look back and I could connect like the sequence of events that sparked this epiphany. I think it was already like kind of like, I just like food and like sharing Khmer culture and like wanting people to know about Cambodia. And then that moment of just slurping this broth, and it was just so good that it just like came to me all at once. And yeah, that's when like, when things got crazy.
The journey was about to begin. You mentioned it's your 3rd time in Cambodia, so it wasn't even I mean, you must have had Cambodian food, obviously, the past 2 times that you were there. Was it kinda brewing in your head, at that before then, or was it truly just kind of like a shock that all of a sudden it kinda slapped you across that it
Yeah,
came?
Yeah, I mean, that epiphany was definitely an aha moment, but
Mhm.
prior to that, the trip to Cambodia was not to, like, learn about Cambodian food or anything like that. I've went to Cambodia the first time, really just was the purpose was to learn more about my family's history, to learn more about my parents. And then along the way, I fell in love with the food and, like, realize even more that this food is just so delicious, but it was always in the background. Like my mission was I'm gonna just learn as much about my family, my parents' history as much as possible. But along the way, yeah, I just fell in love with food and obviously how food is like the ultimate love language from my family, even in Cambodia. It just like brought us so much closer, and then the ability for them to open up over food was like so evident, and just the curiosity again of like also learning how to cook these Khmer dishes while I was in Cambodia. And so I think like there's like all these little events, and then that bowl of soup on my third trip, my brain somehow just connected the dots, and then the aha moment happened. And I was listening to a lot of Cambodian like 50s, 60s rock and roll too during that time. So like, I was always thinking about, like, Senses and Mud and, like, how romantic the lyrics were and how amazing the food the song were, like, everything about Cambodia I was, like, obsessed with, like, the food, the music, and I'm like and so the epiphany was, how do I bring that back to Cambodia? I mean, back to the Bay Area, and then this idea of Nyam Bai happened.
Yeah, yeah. Were you scared when the epiphany hit you?
I wasn't scared, it just felt so right, that aha moment just felt like, this is what I am meant to do, like, it just felt that I mean, even though I and I didn't mention this, I had no experience running a business, I have no experience cooking, I had no idea what it took to, like, just start, like, a food business or to, like, learn how to cook without any experience. So, I have to put that in there as well, but I think this passion and being, like, crazy about this dream just really, like, pushed me to just start somewhere to do it. But along the way, when I came back from Cambodia during that trip, I met some people who helped me on my journey, and I just felt like, every moment that I doubted myself, like, I would meet people who would help me with, like, pop-ups and, like, organization that I got into and friends who helped me, like, started, like, a supper club and all these things like that.
Yeah, yeah. And at that point when you had your epiphany, were you already starting to collect recipes from your mom? Like how many recipes had you collected thus far or did you not? have any at that point?
I had 0 recipes. I
Oh
actually
my gosh.
didn't know how to cook anything whatsoever. I mean, I have, just through, like, just the act of just being in the kitchen with my mom growing up, I knew, like, what flavors, like, what dishes, how it's supposed to taste like,
Mhm.
what certain ingredients supposed to go in what soup or some law, whatever, stir fry, but I didn't have any recipes whatsoever, so I came back from that trip really with nothing. Like, I started out with, like, a blank page, and literally that blank page was this spreadsheet that I've created that started the cathil broth trial. So that was the first thing I learned how to make, actually, was the cathil because, I mean, 1, it was, like, one of my favorite thing to eat, and 2, I just thought it would be, like, a nice introduction to Khmer food because at that time, I mean, this was now at least 14 years ago. uh, yeah, about 14 years ago. Ramen is, like, it became, like, that time it was, like, popular, and then, like, people already know about, like, Vietnamese pho, so I'm like, "Oh," I gotta introduce people to Cambodian noodle soup, it's so good, and so the idea of learning how to make kutil, um, was already, like, the first mission of where to start.
An ode to the epiphany recipe,
Yes.
the epiphany food.
Yes, and that too, yeah, it's like I saw this vision in this bowl of cathil, really, like, I'm staring at this bowl of cathil and I see, like, all the images and, like, all the little parts that I was gonna do.
No, I think that's so incredible, and I think that also gives you the foundation because you didn't have any recipes at that point or hadn't really started the full process of, like, talking to your mom and collecting them one by one. It almost allows you to have a clean slate and essentially define Cambodian food in your own way, or you probably had to ask yourself when you were like, "I'm gonna start this restaurant." I would imagine your question in your head is always, what parts of Cambodian food are absolutely non-negotiable to call it Cambodian food, and what parts do I have to kind of be a little bit more lenient so that we can, cater to the greater population. So, what was your process in finding the fine line between, like, this is Cambodian food and these things are non-negotiable versus stuff that you were kind of a little bit more lenient on?
I was never, like, lenient on any recipes or dishes that I've put out there.
Mm.
I would say there's no fine line, actually. I don't really compromise with any of the foods that I put out there. So much of, like, what I do is to honor tradition and what was lost. So
Mhm.
I try to stay true to the Khmer food that I know, that I grew up with, and the flavors that I fell in love with. And the point is for people to really try, like, what Cambodian food is. I mean, granted, each Khmer family has, like, different recipes of, like, amok or katil prumpañ or whatever like that, but, like, the flavors that I put out there are flavors that I grew up with and what was taught to me either from my mom or, like, from my journeys or from, my trips in Cambodia, but never have I ever thought, "Oh, I should just, like, maybe take out Brahok or not put in this and that to, like, appease mass, like, group of people that are unfamiliar with the cuisine." Because what's the point of that if my goal was to really push Khmer culture forward and for people to really experience Khmer food for what it is? And so I think I've never compromised with any of the
Mhm.
flavors and dishes that I put out there.
Yeah. And that was always just a non-negotiable. That was always your approach to this
Yes.
whole entire thing. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, always.
Yeah. And I think that's the right way to go about it. It also I can imagine sometimes it might feel maybe scary because it then kind of feels like a risk as you're opening a business and trusting that the people are going to love the food, right? Talk to me a little bit about if you were to define Cambodian food, how would you define it?
Well, I mean, I wanna say, like, it is a risk, but I believed in it so much, and I believed how delicious the food was, and I just went with it. And, another before I answer your question, just a side note, like, one of the dishes that became very popular at Nyum Bai was brahokti, And
Mhm.
I mean, that dish has like 50% Prahok, and people loved it so much. When I told my mom I was gonna put Prahok on the menu, like, "Are you really? No one's gonna come and eat it." I'm like, "But it's so good. I like people it's gonna love it. It's just that delicious." But I believed in it. Like, I'm just this is Khmer food. Why am I not gonna put it on the menu? Okay,
Yeah.
and so, talking about what is Khmer food, right? So, to me, Khmer food is ancient. It's been around for, centuries. It's complex, it's refined, it's giving, it's fresh, bright, herbaceous. I mean, our ancestors were so wise, like they foraged for food, lived off the land. They learned about, fermenting fish and veggies, pickled to preserve, but they also knew that it resulted in delicious food. And the two stars of Khmer food, like what's defined it as well is what I've mentioned earlier, which is prahok. And prahok has been part of Cambodian's history, for some time. If you look at the Angkor Wat carving, you see like vats of clay pots and, fishes being dried in the sun. So going back to see, I get very excited. I lose like track.
No,
So
that's
prahok
okay.
is
Yeah.
yeah, prahok is like fermented fish paste that, has like this very pungent smell, but really is what gives so much flavor to Khmer food. And it's so versatile. You can turn it into like make soup with it, use stir fry or like steam it, bake it. And it's also a very humble food too, where back in the days, like you would just pack like prahok with some rice and you take it out to the field. And then the second star of Khmer food is called Kreung. Kreung translates to ingredients, but it's more than just ingredients. It's this aromatic paste with um, lemongrass, galanga, garlic, turmeric, lime leaves. I feel like I'm missing something else. Shallots. I mean, every family has their Kreung recipe, okay? And then you would cut it into small pieces and then use a mortar and pesto to make a paste out of it. And then it just, it's just this bright herbaceous scent that it leaves you, and combine that with brahok and kreung, it's just like I think that's
Mm,
just what makes Khmer food so good, just that combination.
right.
So that's how I would describe Khmer food. It's just, it's unlike anything. I mean, I've been eating it all my life. I still cook it almost every day, and it's the only food that I like still crave.
Yeah. No, it's so true. I feel like when you grow up with Khmer food, it's really, really hard to find other foods that are gonna hit
Hmm.
the notes all at the same time like Khmer food does. Like,
Yes.
you can try any other cuisine. And even as I was growing up, it was like, any other cuisine. It's just there's no other cuisine out there that's gonna be salt, spice, lime, pepper, sugar. All of your senses are just, like, turned on.
Yeah.
And so it's really I 100% agree with you there. It's like there's no other food like it. And it's you end up craving it because it's just you can't find it. You can't find any other cuisine that's gonna hit all the notes at the same time like my
Yeah.
food does.
Exactly, and that's why I was just like, I was gonna take a chance to put Khmer food out there because it was just that good, and
Yeah.
also, I wanna mention, like, the colors of Khmer food and, like, the textural contrast is just so
Right.
beautiful, right? You have, like, the
Right.
raw veggies that you eat with, like, this, like, brahok or rice, and
Right.
you just are able to know, like, the balance between, like, sweet, tart, and umami, and then if you want, you can add, like, fresh chilies, make it spicy. And it's very
Mhm.
customizable too. Like if you're gonna go to Cambodia and order a bowl of noodle soup, I mean, there's like an array of condiments to choose from. And I think that's also like the fun part of eating Khmer food. Like the base is already good. Like how can you make it better with all this condiments?
Right. Right, exactly, exactly. So, you decided, "Okay, I'm gonna open a restaurant, follow my epiphany. I am going to start learning these recipes, and I'm gonna give it a shot. I'm gonna take a risk, and I'm gonna open up a restaurant, and non-negotiable, we're gonna make the recipes as traditional as we can." You open Nyum Bai in Oakland. I actually also ate there as well. I took my dad there back in the day when it first opened, and because I was so excited, and I will say it was truly, like, the cutest restaurant. I've been to both. I've been to Lunette and Nyum Bai, and I just feel like Nyum Bai had this vibe. You walked in and it was like like bright colored walls, turquoise and like pink, and then there would be like the Cincy Samut blasting through, and it was just truly a gem, I feel like, in Oakland. Talk to me about your process in opening and also just the chapter of Nyum Bai as a whole.
I mean, it's so it's bittersweet. I mean, the process. I mean, I had so much help with from community, friends, and family opening up Nyum Bai because I didn't. I mean, I don't have investors. I
Mhm.
never worked with any investors, so the little money that I saved from my pop-up and, like, managing to get small business loans, everything else were just, like, time that my friends volunteered to help put the place together, friends and family. So it was a very special place in that sense where you could just feel the love and support from the community. And when I was scouting for a location for Yambai, um, um, it was the first place that I saw, and I already knew that that was going to be like the location because of like the semi-open kitchen and how small it was. And in some ways too, the neighborhood reminded me of the Mission in San Francisco and like the Stockton community that I grew up in. So it just felt like home when I saw the place. And so, I mean, we just transformed that place, and the decoration, the vibe was mainly inspired by the golden era because I was trying to, yeah, create the space where people can come and have a good time and listen to Cambodian rock and roll music. Like so much of what people know about Cambodia is either the genocide or like the Angkor Wat. So I wanted this place to represent something like something fun, like to remember people of the good times, right? And
Uh-huh.
so that's why the color was um you know, bright and cute and like with cool neon sign with like abstract art. So it's just like whatever it is that you take away from looking from being in that space. But most importantly, it's like the ritual is we always play Cambodian rock and roll music. And then, you know, but the first year that we opened, didn't know what was going to happen, but we were open.
You're like, let's give this a shot. Open it
Yeah, it
up.
was, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. You had gotten so many awards so quickly the moment that you opened Yumbai, and it was just crazy, I think, like, how quickly the awards came in, and I remember specifically reading some of the articles about it, and I felt so much pride because I was like, "Oh my gosh, like, I've never seen Cambodian food presented in this way," and it was really, really refreshing to see that, as you said, the flavors that we grew up with, whether it be, all the unami flavors, the fishy and the salty and the spicy and all the things were actually finally I felt like it was getting, what it deserved. Yumbai, you mentioned it was a bittersweet moment in your journey, and you showcased a little bit of this in your Netflix special, but it was also a time where you experienced, just heavy burnout, having it be your very first restaurant and a lot of just family things that were happening in the background that was just a bit too much at all at once. Talk to me just a little bit about that, I guess, juxtaposition between all these awards coming at you, but at the same time, balancing the business, balancing the things at home, trying to keep yourself sane. Talk to me just a little bit about that moment in time.
yeah. So this is like the part of this business that I didn't know I had to learn, you know, like there was this dream, you know, to open up a Cambodian restaurant, um, and to create space for Khmers to come and enjoy Khmer food and put Cambodian food out there. But, you know, when all those awards came in, I was more of a, I was shocked more than anything because it was just like an, you know, an immigrant kid, like raised in the ghetto, honestly. And also at the same time, like I was inexperienced in every way as a chef, a leader, a business owner. So it made no sense to me that I was winning like all these awards. And also in the background, you know, figuring out like my role in the kitchen as a leader. You know, the last time I saw my dad was at Nyambai, and so when he had passed away too, I kind of had to just like I didn't have time to grieve, and I didn't know like how to grieve because the restaurant needed me, the team needed me. Like we were just so busy every day that I worked like I was the first one in, the last one out the first couple years where I worked like 12, 14 hours a day nonstop. And so I just didn't have time to process all the success or the awards. And so, but it was successful, the awards helped shed light on Khmer cuisine, and I'm like so forever proud and grateful of like my team's dedication. But I didn't have a second to sit down to enjoy the success because I was just on go mode all the time. But now, as I'm reflecting with all the awards, it makes me kind of sad right now just to think that I've never celebrated. When I did won all those awards, it's just like I didn't have time. Maybe because I
Yeah.
didn't think I deserved it, or because you know other multiple reasons. Yeah, it was a success, but yet like on the outside, but in the inside, I was just turmoil for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think something that also stands out to me is, like, you mentioned in the beginning of this episode that, like, your dad was the OG foodie. Your dad was the OG who it was his tongue that you were really trying to make sure and see if you can get the approval for, because he was the OG person who truly you respected, and you felt like he truly understood what things were supposed to taste like. And so just to, like, have that happen at the same time of everything, I can imagine was just really, really difficult, to lose that important family member in your life.
Yeah, but I do. I'm sure he was very proud of me because the day that he came, the last time I saw him, he did order like a second bowl of gudil to take home. And when I do miss him, I just think back about, my relationship with him, like in the car, driving around looking for places to eat. And he's still with me.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it was just kind of, everything just happened all at once, my dad and like the success of the shop and the awards and just like figuring out who I was and like as a leader, as a chef and all this stuff because like I've said earlier, I just didn't have any experience whatsoever, but I was just so like obsessed and crazy about this idea of just like putting my food out there. I was just gonna do it without any experience, and then that was just kind of like the process of learning it as I was going, on top of being one of the busiest restaurant in the Bay Area.
Yeah, yeah. It definitely was busy, and I can attest to that, you being there, because I remember seeing you back there when I was there. So, and it was like just a random Saturday at lunchtimes. The store, um, it came to the end of its lease and you decided not to renew.
Mhm.
And how did that feel? Was that necessary at that time, and you felt like it was the thing to do at the time?
Yeah, totally. I mean,
Yeah.
my staff could tell that I was not into cooking anymore. Like, they're like,
Mhm.
"Chef, you look so miserable." And I was because, after like COVID and like, you know, shrinking the business down with like half the team left. And, COVID has changed everything as well. And so just like feeling defeated in so many ways of like trying to be your best and do your best and giving it my all, but, like, my heart just didn't match that. And
Yeah.
so when I knew that the lease was coming to an end, I thought about it again and again, and was going back and forth, like, "Should I close it now? Should I wait? What should I do?" And I knew it wasn't an easy decision because I have, like, a team that I've worked with since the restaurant opened, like, they became family in some ways, and I was just I felt responsible. Um
Yeah,
uh
absolutely. Yeah.
and but when I started to cook and I just felt that I didn't have the heart to like go show up to work anymore and like cook, I just knew that was like I just had to close down. I had to. And
Yeah.
so when I knew that in my bones and my heart, it just kind of clicked. I told my team that, this is going to be our last date. We're just going to, go with it. And looking back, there was no regrets. It was definitely the right decision for sure to close down the restaurant because, It gave me time to reflect. When I closed down Nyum Bai, I took 2 years off, and honestly, I didn't know how tired I was because I
Mm.
slept for, like, months. Like, I just slept and I slept and I slept. I really didn't know how tired I was. Yeah, it took a toll on me, and I remembered, like, looking in the mirror one day and just, like, making this connection with, like, myself and, like, this person in the mirror, like, "Wow, like, I have not, like, taken care of you in, like,
Mhm.
so long." So I just slowed down after that, and it was the right decision.
Yeah, yeah. I remember when you closed down, but I also remember checking your website, and it seemed like you knew that something else was gonna be coming. You just didn't know when that was going to be. Because I think I remember reading something on the website or something that, like, something was brewing, and I don't know at what point you had the idea for Lynette. So talk to me exactly between that 2-year period, when did you have the inspiration for Lynette, and how did you know within yourself that you were gonna approach this differently?
I knew, like, the Nyum Bai, like, what I do, like, it wasn't over when I shut down Nyum Bai. How it would look like, I wasn't too sure.
Mhm,
But I just knew that cooking Khmer food has always been a way for me to, like, learn and discover things about the past to better understand the present and to shape the future. And so that has always been, like, my thing. And the fast casual idea was just kind of looming around in my head just because the restaurant industry that was had a full service model was suffering. Like, they were just had a hard time just recovering from the pandemic. And I also knew myself too that if I were to open another restaurant, it would in fact be even smaller than Mumbai. But how it would look like, I wasn't too sure yet because and I wasn't in a rush. Like, people had reached out to me and I looked at several locations, but I said no because it just didn't feel right. But also during that time, I wrote a cookbook. And so that was also a chance for me, writing the cookbook writing process gave me a time to also reflect and just to, like, see, like, this journey that I've been on. So I spent a lot of my time with the cookbook, and the next project, like opening up a brick and mortar, wasn't like a thing that I, like, had to do right away. It had to
mhm,
feel right because a few things that I told myself was I was gonna open something smaller, something fast casual, like, just have, like, a really small team, small menu. It will be a work-life balance where no one works more than 8 hours a day, like, all these things. What the mistakes I made at Lunette, like, I learned from it. I'm like, "I'm not gonna repeat the same thing again." So, like, that work-life balance is very important. Having, like, a small team and location and everything, like, everything just have to align perfectly. And so when the Ferry Building had reached out to me to, they basically called me and said, "I heard you're not doing anything." I'm like, "Well, that's kinda true." They're like, "Well, we have this space that might, is something that you might be interested in." And so this was, also my friend Reem, who was also in the Ferry Building at the time, had told them about me. And so they reached out and asked me if I wanted to go look at the place. I'm like, sure, why not? I mean, the Ferry Building is absolutely gorgeous. It's like this
mhm.
historical landmark. Like, it wouldn't hurt to go look. And so, like, with all my decision making, it was like purely on gut and instinct. And when I saw the place where Lunette is at now, I just knew that was going to be the second home of whatever it was that I was doing. And
Mhm.
so I just kinda gave them this, like, noodle bar concept idea, and then, like, they love it, they love it. I'm like, "Okay, I think this might be the place." And so this was about a year ago, actually, when I signed the lease, when the shop opened up, and I don't know, a side story to this too is that, you look at Lunette now, we have this big dining room in the front with this beautiful mural. The
Right.
original plan was to only have the seven-seat noodle bar. That was it. Like,
Mm.
very, very, very tiny, like 7 seats facing the kitchen and everything was gonna be takeout. So that
You're
was
like, "When I
actually the
said
original idea.
small, I really meant small." You're like
Yeah, like tiny, tiny, but somehow I said, "Okay, let's just expand it a little bit." I mean, it's still a small restaurant now, but in hindsight, I'm like, I'm so happy I took over that dining space.
your line would be literally circling around the ferry building if you did not have more seats.
Yeah, it's like, what it was like, it was so tiny. Because during that time too, I was, like, just, I just got back from Japan. I was just, like, so impressed with, like, the small, like, noodle bars there. I'm like, "They could make it work. I can make this work too," you know?
Yeah, yeah. You throughout this whole journey and this process, another point of pride that I felt following your journey is seeing you on Netflix, Chef Table Noodles. I feel like that was huge for you guys at Lunette and just putting you on the map for so many people who maybe have never heard about Cambodian food. So, talk to me about that process. When did they call you? Did you call them? How long did it take to shoot and all the details regarding that?
Okay, I'll give you the tea. Uh,
T T T.
Brian, who is one of the producer, Netflix, had called me back in, I don't know, late 2022, and he got my number through a mutual friend, and then he texted me, "This is Megan from Netflix." I'm like, "Oh, I know who you are." It's like, "Do you have a moment to chat?" I'm like, "Sure." So we hop on the call a couple times, and then he expressed to me that he wanted me to be part of the new Chef's Table Noodles series for the new season. And then I was like, "Wait, do you have the right person?" Like, "Are you like, me? Why?" Because I told them, like, "I haven't had a restaurant, Nyum Bai closed down, but
Yeah.
they've convinced me," and they're like, "No, you're the one, you're the knight that we want." And so finally, um, I said yes because it's such, like, an opportunity of, like, a lifetime to be able to go on Chef's Table Netflix to talk about Cambodian food. It's like a way also to kind of leave this legacy behind. And again, going back to my mission, like, how do I really put Cambodian culture out there? And so I'm like, okay. So it made sense to say yes to this experience. And they were so amazing. Like the chess table team, like the crew, they were just like the most sweetest, talented, and creative group of people that I've ever met. They made me feel so comfortable, because what they do, they're able to pull out really like you know, personal stories out of you in a way where you just felt cared for and loved for. And I think they're just like, A plus all around. But the experience was like a whirlwind, all my worlds collided to make it happen. Like my mom was in the episode with me, my friends, La Cocina, like all like the past came together to make this happen. And it's just, I was emotional like throughout the whole process because I just kind of like reflect back and my journey and I'm like, wow, I just feel so fortunate to be around like amazing people who've helped me, but also to think that, my ancestors and my mom, like karma has probably given me this life that I have because anytime I felt that it's just I'm done or I'm like, "Ugh, I need to do something different or like doubts that I still have about myself, it's just like I think about the incredible people that have made that's been part of my journey. And Chef's Table, is one of this moment that I just keep reminding myself that I'm on the right path, even when I doubt myself. And so, I would never imagine that I would be part of the Chef's Table family. So, where am I going with this? And the whole process took about 3 weeks. It was such a whirlwind. Like they shot in San Francisco, 10, 11 hours a day, and then Cambodia happened, and then they waited to come back, the following year when Lunette opened, so it was, like, a lot of back and forth, um,
Yeah.
chef's table happened, and my mom was, like, kind of the person that everyone talked to about who to, get things, like to make things happen in Stockton. She's like, "Oh, call your like, ask your mom, she can, like, reserve like, talk to the aunties and then temples so we can go shoot there, and, like, get your mom so she can, like, help us in Cambodia." So my mom was actually a huge part in this too, but one thing, it's, um, because my mom was such a big part of this, I think after chef's table, I think that was when my mom finally understood that my purpose and everything that I did so much was for her and to honor her story and to learn about her life. I think that like really shook her because she thought that I was just like, oh, it's this crazy night with her crazy ideas again, cooking, making people eat for Hulk. But then like she understood like the depth of why I do the things that I do was because of Chef's Table and her her herself experienced it firsthand of just the storytelling and how much people were interested in learning about my stories. That was that I mean, wow, I still can't believe that happened. I still can't.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and it shows when you watch the episode how this whole experience had connected you and your mother in a different kind of way. I think the videographers did an amazing job at really telling your story from filming in the Stockton house and like filming your mom cook and you cook next to her and ask her questions. And then you in Cambodia learning the actual like ancient recipes. And then also at the end of it, the dishes like the numbachuk and and the brahak and all the different shots were just beautiful. Like I remember thinking, I've never seen Numbajok displayed in that way. Like, it looked so, like, I don't know, like, upscale and fancy, like, in a way that I was just like, "This is just so gorgeous." Like, I like the way that it's being presented, so I think that's so amazing for you that this experience was a way that your mom can understand what an important piece she is in this whole thing, and because I understand that sometimes it is hard for for the Khmer parents to really understand, like, where we're coming from when we do the things we do, and to them, it may sound crazy, but at the end of the day, a lot of the times, I feel like us whoever's in second generation, a lot of what we do is because of them, is because we're trying to honor their sacrifice, that what they've done for us, honor the journey that they've been on to get here, whether it be war or, losing family members, and, like, saying to them, like, "I see you, I understand you." They don't always see that. So I think that's so wonderful to hear that that experience was that for you guys. Yeah. Yeah. So Netflix is out, and that was just awesome to see. You are then had mentioned that you during this time, you were formulating the cookbook, My Cambodia. This is something that I am so excited for, guys. September 23rd, if you guys haven't bought it or pre-bought the book, definitely buy it in all the places, pre-order in all the places that you would get books. It is truly, when I look at that cookbook, it is one of the most beautiful books I had ever
Thank you.
seen. I've just when you flip through it, it's almost as it's like a photo book, and I guess a way I can describe it is like I'm flipping through it and it almost feels like I'm in this like enchanted dream. Like the colors that you chose, it's like this pastel pink and the photos and the food. It's almost kind of like we're traveling into this dream-like world. Talk to me about the inspiration behind the book. Did you always know you wanted to write a book? And especially, how did you go about choosing the recipes that were going to be inside of it?
Well, I didn't know that I was gonna write a cookbook. I mean, although this cookbook process started back in 2020, um, even then, I wasn't sure that I wanted to write a cookbook, but the
Mm,
more I thought about it, it's like we need to preserve, have documentation of Cambodian recipes somewhere. And so that was the original idea, which is to write recipes of the food that I've learned from past few years of cooking Khmer food. But the inspiration behind the book, you nailed it with like the feeling of like a dreamlike state. I'm often like very inspired by like nostalgia, dream, and like love was the inspiration behind the design of the book.
mm,
I wanted to create something that is timeless, but also it doesn't have like direct, I mean, a sense of time or sense of place. That's why the photography looks the way that it looks, like this dream, nostalgic state, because um, I know I just think about the past so much and I yearn about certain, history and things like that. So I wanted to create that with the cookbook. And most of the recipes that are in this book are dishes that I love to eat that is familiar with some people that are Khmer and also new, but also they each have a story to tell since the beginning of time when I started to learn how to cook.
mhm.
Yeah, it has like, like the simple fried egg recipe, like why would I put a fried egg recipe in the cookbook? But it's something that I like first learned how to cook and cooked for myself, like coming home from school and like, so it's like there's a personal story to like most of the recipes that are in the book.
Yeah, you did such a great job. When I flip through the book, the personal aspect is you nailed it right on the head. It's like, a lot of cookbooks I feel like you don't feel the personal aspects and the memories. You were everyone just go buy it. But the different chapters, it's literally so beautiful because it's almost written and read like a biography. I guess I can say that. The chapters are broken down by the different areas and the different phases of your life, whether it be Cambodia, Stockton, San Francisco, and you even do an ode to donut shops and creating donuts. And each chapter is named in that way and categorized by the recipes that kind of remind you of that era. And you start each era with like 2 pages long of memories from that period, memories of your childhood, memories from Cambodia, why these things are so important to you. And so it really I truly felt the love. I think that's exactly the way that it's coming off. The love and the ode that you are giving to each phase of your life. So I really feel like this is what stands makes this book stand out from other cookbooks. It's not just like a, hey, this is a compilation of recipes, entrees, appetizers, desserts. It's very much like these are the pieces of my childhood, pieces of my past. This is why this is important. I also think it's so amazing because if you look at it, you also add a playlist. I noticed that a playlist to every chapter that you that you've created. So it's like, these are the songs that you should play when you're cooking these recipes and why. And so the attention to detail, people, I am telling you, you guys need to check this book out. It is truly, truly, it's truly beautiful what you've put together. And I guess my question, you've answered this a little bit before. What is your mission with this cookbook that you've compiled?
Um, yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm just, the shout out to the team also behind this cookbook. They, trusted my vision and supported it 100%. And my co-author Dan, who was this wordsmith that's been able just to capture my words and my thoughts when they were just like a jumbled mess in my head. So I've just been also very fortunate in that way too, where I just have this team that was just so dedicated and they just knew like this vision that I had and just went for it.
Mhm,
Yeah, and I like that you touch upon like the organization of like the chapters by different parts of my life because this cookbook is memoir heavy. It's very personal. That's why it's important for it to kind of take you on this journey from like the moment I started in Stockton to San Francisco and the Cambodia. And then if y'all don't know about why the donut shop is the dessert section, you will find out
mhm,
in the cookbook. But my mission for this cookbook is simple. It's really to make my food accessible to all. Like when I wrote the recipes, we tested it. Like I had two recipe testers. We tested it and tested it to make sure one, it was easy to follow and read because knowing that a lot of people are unfamiliar with Cambodian food, like how do we write it in a way where it's, short and simple, but easy to understand and not discourage to cook something so new, to make my food accessible to all. Most importantly, to preserve, like, to document these Khmer recipes because there are two cookbooks by Chef Nite who are like published in Cambodia that's been out.
mhm.
Published like Cambodian cookbook hasn't been out since like the early 90s. And so, that just tells you something how important to have another Cambodian cookbook. And, like I often think about like my niece and nephew, like when they are craving like grandma's cooking or craving Cambodian food, like what are they gonna rely on? Like, now there's like YouTube channels and things like that. But, you know, I can say that there's a cookbook now that they can refer to when they do crave like, Khmer food.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, I have several of my cookbooks as well, but I mean, looking at yours, and I'm not I'm not just saying this to toot your horn, but I truly think that the way you approached it is so different. It's reads like a biography, cookbook, history book slash personal story, and in a beautiful kind of like dreamlight photography way. So when you look back, I remember you mentioning earlier in the episode, you never really allowed yourself to feel all the awards in the time during Nyum Bai. Looking at your journey now, that it's been close to what, 14 years since, what was your I made it moment? And are you allowing yourself to feel that joy now?
I made it movement. I have definitely allowed myself to, I mean, it's taken some time, honestly, to enjoy the success, but I think the moment when I realized I made it was probably, I mean, there's so many parts to this, I would
Mhm.
say some people would like think that it's like being on chef's table is like the most pivotal moment, but I think like I feel accomplished is when I go to work at Lunette and then my team tells me that they're happy to be at work. And when I hear customers at work from all parts of the world because of Chef's Table that they're trying Cambodian food for the first time, and then they just like love it. Like they were, and also people who come to Lunette because they were inspired to go to Cambodia because of this episode from Chef's Table. So I think when I hear those comments, like, that makes me tickle and, like, makes me smile. In terms of me being able to accept my success and have joy, I'm leaning into it more for sure.
I'm glad. You should. You should, Night. If you had to choose one recipe from the cookbook that holds the most memory, what would you say that is?
I mean, yeah, it has to go back to Katio, Phnom Penh, this is the soup that started it all. It was the soup that inspired me to start Nyum Bai. It was the soup that brought my family together during these dark moments. It's the soup that I was able to bring my friends over so they could eat it. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, it holds a lot of sweet, like the good time memories, for sure.
Yeah.
And learning how to make it was also challenging, but it reminded me how long, my journey has been as well.
Yeah. It has been so amazing to watch you kind of blossom throughout the years and through this journey. I've been silently following you for so long from like when you opened Nyum Bai and when Lynette opened. And it's really just, I'm so, so excited that we have a champion in America at this time to really like put a stake down on Cambodian food and be proud of it and essentially have a spokesperson for how amazing Cambodian food is. As I said, so many parts of your journey have been moments that I've felt so much pride in the food that I grew up with. And I feel like it wasn't until I saw these things happen, whether it be on Netflix or, you getting all your awards for all these restaurants. And I just hope you know that as you continue this journey, Night, like there are so many other people who are just like me who have been following you and championing you all this time. It's like we're not cooks ourselves, but we are waiting for somebody to really let people know that this food is incredible and it's amazing. And you've been able to do that with so much passion. Like it's so clear the passion that you have for spreading the food. And it's also so refreshing to know that not you're non-negotiable with it. Like this is the way Cambodian food tastes. This is what we're trying to showcase. And so that's just a joy to see and watch. And I'm such a big supporter and such a big fan. If we had to give one piece of advice to all the upcoming chefs, because I know there's other chefs out there who are like, I want to do the same thing. I want to promote Cambodian food the way Chef Nite has done. What is one piece of advice you would give all the young chefs who want to share Cambodian food?
One piece of advice, I keep going back to telling, even my staff, you just like, we all know our answers. Like, we just have to follow our truth. You just have to trust yourself. And then also, there will be haters that will tell you something else, but you always have to really trust yourself because You know your truth. It's scary, but you just have to trust it. You have to trust the process.
That's wonderful. Well, Night, thank you so much for coming on here and sharing about your journey. It's so many people I know are going to be tuning in and listening to just like the way that you have moved through the last 14 years and getting on Netflix and now the book coming out. As I said, everybody, this is like the third time I've said it, but pre-order the book. September 23rd, it is coming out. Night, where can people find you if they want to find you, and where can they order the book?
Well, people can find me with my dog in my neighborhood or at Lunette, Cambodia, and then you can pre-order the book through any of the your favorite bookstore websites. Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being with us, Night. Everyone, go ahead and check out the book, and also do what I did. Take a book, take a recipe from the book, and actually make it. I'd made numbajuk with my dad over the weekend, and it was truly so much fun. And watching him make numbajuk, which he hasn't made since my grandma passed away, actually, it was really, really a beautiful moment for us. And I encourage everybody to do the same. So again, Night, thank you so much for doing what you do and being with us today.
Thank you so much